I'm a journalist. Article 79 of the Geneva Convention formally states that journalists are protected under international humanitarian law.
Who are you?
I'm Tanya Elva. I'm an independent investigative journalist covering the Civil War.
Are you the journalist mentioned in this note?
I have no idea who or what this note is referring to. You're barking up the wrong tree.
Listen, I don't want any trouble. I'm just looking for supplies.
Who are you?
The name's Atticus. I escaped the Medini prison camp when the demons attacked. I should have died there. Looks like Setharus had other plans for me. I joined up with some refugees. We have a camp close by. Path to reach it is behind the giant stone serpent. Head north from here. You should find it. These people need me. They're in bad shape. I'm out here scrounging for supplies. Have you seen the destroyed ON vehicles on the road? They're northeast of the Weeping Knight statue. There's a truck that's still in good shape. If only I could find the keys and get it started, I could take these people to my father's farm in Sinedra.
I think I met your father. He's Ernest Cadell, right?
Yes, he's my father. I'm glad to know he's alive and well. This makes me want to get back home even more. It doesn't look like it, but Hadia was beautiful and peaceful. It changed so quickly. I first noticed it on campus at Los Angeles University. History lessons were modified to suit new narratives. The line drawn in the sand by facts was fading under the waves of Sabinian nationalism. New campus groups and fraternities were formed and engaged in intimidation campaigns against Palamist students. Some of us stood firm, but most ended up leaving. It was so hard for me. My parents had spent their hard-earned money to send me to university. I was the only one in the family who had been given this chance. Deep down, I always believed that it would stop, that people would eventually come to their senses. Then I noticed that this was happening all over the country. By the time my hope had faded, civil war erupted. When the war erupted, I was still in Los Angeles, in the heart of the Lion's Den. I gathered what supplies I had and left for the Asterian-Umbrahan border. I needed to get home, to get to my family. What usually took a few hours on a road trip was turning into a logistical nightmare. Couldn't drive, take the bus, or train. Sabinian soldiers were patrolling back roads, streets, stations, you name it. On the way, I did things. Things I'm not proud of. I stole from people who were more desperate than I was. I refused to help others in need. I truly failed as a Palamist. After months of hiding, looting, stealing, and running, I finally arrived on the outskirts of the Umbrahan border. I sought refuge in a barn. I was exhausted and hungry. The farmer woke me. I was initially terrified, but he was holding a plate of food. He said he would return with more. It turned out to be a Sabinian farmer, feeding me to buy time until the soldiers showed up. It worked like a charm. That was the last square meal I had. After that, prison scraps if I was lucky. Did you know that the peacekeepers had an outpost in Medini? They stood by and watched Sabinian soldiers rape and murder Palamists in droves. I'll tell you what they did care about. Their medical supplies and food. That's it. If they claim they never saw the Medini prison camp just outside of town, they could sure smell it. I guarantee you that. The stench of death filled the air for kilometers. They had the numbers and equipment to stop what was happening. They just stood there and watched. Let's just say, I don't hold them in high regard. Let me tell you about Sabinians. The guards at the Medini prison camp would sometimes open the camp gates to Sabinian civilians. They would enter the gates of hell to spend the night beating, killing, raping, or any other twisted pleasure they could imagine. These Sabinian civilians wanted to settle old scores. Do you know what their grievances were? A wealthy Palamist who would refuse to give them a job. A farmer who wouldn't lend his tools. A man who had stolen a girlfriend. Petty disputes were settled with crimes against humanity. That's who you're dealing with. I despise them with every fiber of my being. They are my brothers and sisters. Our faith and tragedy bind us. We will overcome this. We must. Now, more than ever. May we all stand in our Lord's gaze. They are not our Lord's doing. He would never unleash such demons upon us, no matter how much we've sinned. This disaster is the work of TR, the great two-headed serpent. You want proof? If they were from Setharus, they would have only attacked the guards back in Medini. Once the strange anomalies appeared, creatures materialized everywhere out of thin air. It was surreal. The Kata describes a place called the Himalara Fields. TR made the great curse, and his demons dwell in that place. I believe those anomalies are doorways between our worlds.